I used to check white on census forms and things like that. I don't anymore. But I took a DNA test and I did, at this point, it's been 24 years of genealogical research on my family story, on my family. And so somewhere in that, I decided to change how I answered that question. There's a map going around on X that counts me as a casualty, actually. It says that people like me are proof of the fastest demographic decimation in world history. They're saying millions of white people are being replaced or have disappeared. So let's talk about what's really happening. Hi, I'm Danielle Romero. Thank you so much for being with me here on my channel where we talk about American identity and family stories. So I'm gonna put this post on the screen for you guys while I'm editing, but this guy has two maps. So what the post says is another visualization of the largest, fastest demographic decimation in world history. If it were done to anyone else, it would be called, I'm not gonna say it because I don't want to get in trouble, but you know this word. But when it's done to white people, it's called diversity. So here is the map, and I want to chat with you about this map a little bit. The top one says 1920, and almost the whole country's filled in. Because what this map is trying to tell you is that at the time, basically every county was more than 90% white. And we're gonna get to why I'm putting these in air quotes. The bottom one, 2020, so this is 100 years in between, same map, ostensibly the same measure, and the color is nearly gone. It looks kind of scattered, pockets through the Midwest and up into New England, a lot more dense. I'm gonna show you, before we get back to this map, I wanna show you a census where actually an entire race of Americans did disappear. Not most of them, all of them, 100%. In 10 years, they were gone. This would be the fastest, most complete demographic collapse in the recorded history of the world. It's the 1940 census. Except, in this demographic collapse, no one died. In 1930, our federal government, the US federal government, invented a race. For this one census in 1930, and the federal census is every 10 years, enumerators, those are the people that scribble down what they think you are, were told that anyone born in Mexico or whose parents were born in Mexico should be written down as Mexican rather than under any other racial category. Didn't matter what you look like. This is a brand new race they're making, made in a committee room in Washington and printed onto a form that went out to every enumerator who was checking every household in this country. That's 1930. In 1940, the instructions read differently. In 1940, the enumerator was told that Mexicans are now to be returned as white unless the person is definitely something that's non-white. So I'm gonna explain what this means. Over 1 million people were censused as Mexican for the 1930 census, but by 1940, there are now 0 Mexicans, according to the census, in the United States. We're talking the same counties, okay? Same population. If you put 1930's census results next to 1940 census result, just like he did with his 1920-2020 maps, you would have to get up in front of people and announce that Mexican Americans were wiped off the continent somewhere between President Hoover and President Roosevelt. The Mexican Americans actually killed the category themselves. They organized and they won. And the reason they did this was because in Jim Crow America, being counted as white was the difference between having rights or not having them. So being handed your own separate race on a federal form was actually a target being painted on your family. And the Hispanic Americans and Mexican Americans at this point understood that very well. Now you might say, well, it just depends on what you look like. Kind of. But if you had a document that said that you were legally white, you could marry other people who were white, because of miscegenation laws at the time. It would also determine where your kids were allowed to go to school. It would determine whether or not you were allowed to build a home in a certain neighborhood. If you were listed as white, where your family could be buried, what kind of cemetery they could be buried in. So being listed as white had some weight, right? So a group of Americans lobbied their own race out of existence on purpose. The government agrees. And that's how 1.5 million people changed color between 2 censuses. Okay, so what I'm trying to say, if you're new to my channel, the category moves. That alone should make you cautious about anybody who stacks 2 census centuries apart or data from a 1920 census and a 2020 census and calls this a body count, right, of some massive crime. From 1790 1790, so it's really the beginning of our country, to 1950, you did not answer the race question. A stranger would answer it for you. This is literal. For 160 years, the census taker would walk down your street, look at your face when you answered the door, and made a judgment call using very specific instructions handed down from the federal government about how to gauge what your race is. Nobody asked you anything, although they might ask your neighbor, and that was actually included in the directions for census takers. Your race was actually an observation that someone else recorded about you, more or less the way he would have recorded the color of your house. Your family's 1940 census record is free to look at, and in the race column of that record, there will be handwriting. It's not going to be your great-grandma's handwriting, it's going to be the enumerator's handwriting. She might not even have known what was written on that document. And so whatever he decided in a half second became official racial history for your family, okay? Now, let's go back to this guy's map. This map is made of millions and millions and millions of instances of that happening. The first census, the first time Americans could identify themselves was in 1960. So by 1970, the forms went out in the mail. Most people filled out their own, and then identifying race stopped being the enumerator's job. So it was up to you to kind of decide what you felt best represented you and your family. In 1977, the federal policy made that permanent, so they were kind of just trying out. Should we let them decide who they are? Yeah. And the rule from then on was that the person answers the question, not the government. If we put his post back up and we look at what we're being shown, the 1920 map is a record of what strangers thought people looked like. The 2020 map is a record of people saying who they are. These are two different instruments measuring two different things. These are apples and oranges that we're looking at. When you're seeing 1920 and saying, this is our baseline as a country, this is what we were, this is the pure starting point from where we've fallen from, you have to remember this was engineered. That map is not a photograph of America. He's making this claim between 2010 and 2020, the census counted about 19 million fewer people marking their race as white alone. And the Bureau is saying that there was an 8.6% drop in the white population in a single decade. I want to tell you what I think happened between 2010 and 2020. One, until the year 2000, you could not check more than one race. If you came from two worlds, the form said, pick one, throw the other one to the side. We need to abandon it. But the moment they started letting people tell the truth about who they were, claim all the parts of their ancestry, the single race numbers began to fall. It's not because anyone got genocided. It's not because anybody left. It's not because this big bad thing happened. They were never one thing to begin with. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the DNA side of this too, what I think is happening, people taking DNA tests. I took a DNA test in 2014, so that falls right in the middle of this big loss of the white demographic. And it was right around the time I really started to seriously do my family history. And I realized, first of all, I didn't really know what white meant anymore. What is white, right? I don't need to rehash that with you. Now I have dozens and dozens of videos on that topic on my channel about how those goalposts have moved over time. People have actually gone to the Supreme Court to sue to prove that their race is white. I'm talking Asians, I'm talking Armenians, I'm talking people from India. And those court cases were a snapshot of the struggle of trying to prove who is white. And so I felt like white really didn't mean anything to me. And it's not like I picked another color. I don't say I'm yellow or red or black or purple or whatever. I just decided to not check off white anymore. I do wonder how many people have been doing their family work, doing their genealogy, taking DNA tests, and recognizing that white in particular doesn't really represent the full story of their family. We have options now where people can do write-ins, you can check off ethnicities. And so when you have options like that, I imagine people will be much more inclined to say that they have Irish ancestry than just say they're white. That these 19 million people who have just disappeared and been decimated in this demographic horror show, I don't think that's really what happened. I think people have been answering the question of how do you identify differently than maybe a stranger with a clipboard would have answered it for them 100 years ago. This map that he's showing can't distinguish between people being replaced or dying off versus people identifying differently. The last number I want to give you is that everybody who says they're white at all or white alone in combination with something else, that went from 74% to about 71%. And the people who say they're part white grew from about 2.5% to about 10%. So nobody stopped being white anyway. People just also started being other things too. We are one of the first generations in American history that we get to speak for ourselves. We get to speak for our ancestors. And it really bothers me that this man's looking at this paltry data and fear-mongering like this. And I think the next time you see something like this or it lands in your feed or whatever, just remember it's built to frighten people. And I would encourage you to ask the two questions a genealogist will ask or historian will ask about every document that crosses her desk. Who made this record? And what was actually being measured? In this country, we have been redesigning this race box for more than 200 years. They're still redesigning it. They're still redesigning it now. And I can give you an example of that. Like happening right now, March 2024, the Office of Management and Budget rewrote the federal standard for how the country collects race. This was the first time since 1997. And one of the biggest changes was Middle Eastern and North African became its own category. So we sometimes just say MENA, which matters because under the old standard, MENA Americans were counted as whites. This was not an oversight or an accident. It was the 1997 rule that defined and tabulated them. And so someone who was an Egyptian American or a Lebanese American, Moroccan American, for decades on every form was white. Well, guess what? In 2024, that rule took them out of the white category. They're not dead. They just got moved. So if this rule reaches the 2030 census in a couple years, the white population of the US is going to drop again, but not because anything terrible has happened, nothing bad has happened, but because, as the US loves to do, people are being calculated differently. So right now, while you're watching this today, there is a live fight in Washington over whether or not several million Americans will be counted as white in 2030. Not whether they'll move or they'll be born or they're being pushed out by immigrants so they'll die. No, whether or not they will be white on a form. This man posted a map proving that white people are disappearing, but the actual white population of this country in 2030 is being actually just settled by a memo right now. And no one seems to care about that part of it. If you want to go deeper into how these categories were really written and rewritten and changed, the actual enumerator instructions in 1930 are crazy. I post a lot of this stuff over at Patreon. You can check it out, patreon.com/NYTN. That's usually where the paper trail is, but you can find these videos on YouTube as well. Let me know what you think. I'll see you Friday.